Hey, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be talking to you about Vector, this adorable robot made by now defunct ANKI. I think I'm saying it right. I'll take you through what Vector is, what it does, who made it, what happened to them, and the most important question, should you put your hard-earned dollars towards one in late 2019 and after? Let's start with Vector. The device itself was released in late 2018 as a sort of successor to the Cosmo robot. It's essentially a pet robot that can do some basic commands like telling you the weather, playing a game of blackjack, or dancing to the beat of your music. Vector uses emotional signaling as one of its core differentiators. It does that best through its eye screen along with some cleverly integrated sounds and actions that are quite reminiscent of a pet. The packaging itself was quite premium. I really liked opening the box and seeing how everything was placed. Well built, well placed, and Apple-like packaging all make this a brilliant unboxing and a potential great gift to give. It comes with all the essentials, which includes the charger station and Vector's Play Cube. Vector acts somewhat like a pet. You can pet him, give him commands to come to you or to recognize your face, or ask who you are. You can even put him in the palm of your hand and he won't freak out as he can detect that he's on your palm and not on solid ground. Vector uses the cloud to interface with commands and respond to them. He can also be connected to Amazon Alexa, which I personally think is a bit silly if you have an Echo anywhere near the Vector, since they tend to get confused. There are a bunch of fun, silly things he can do and react to from you, but that's about it. It was made to be a cloud-based device that would learn more with time and get better with updates, but as I'll get to next, that's not likely going to happen. The ANKI marketing video for Vector is quite comprehensive, so you can check that out to see more of what Vector does specifically. Having watched it, the only real difference I saw between the video and having Vector around in real life or at home is the time delay. Vector is a bit slow when responding and figuring things out. Otherwise, what they claim is pretty much as is. The other thing is that Vector is extremely limited in the commands he can respond to. When you first interact with Vector, the device can quickly trick you into thinking that it can respond to many different varied requests, but you soon realize that that's not the case. Every time a guest or child tries to interact with Vector, you have to nudge them in the right direction, which can get a little bit annoying at times, but we can't expect much more than that. I'll give him that. Overall, the device is nice to have, but I couldn't imagine paying the full asking price for it. I don't think it's worth it, honestly. It is novel, it's fun for a short while, and the potential for updates and fixes would have made it more exciting. But in December 2019 and after owning it for 2 months, it's just not that interesting anymore. I do have to say I admire ANKI for what they did and the direction they took, but those are my opinions on the product as a whole. And I'll get into a little bit of why that is the case, and some of it relates to ANKI, the mother company. Which leads me to who made Vector. And it is ANKI, a consumer robotics company that went out of business in May 2019. And they're responsible for the hardware and software for Vector. If you're like me, you would have seen Vector advertised with a bunch of big YouTube channels. And that's how I ended up buying one. I got Vector at the cool price of $100, thinking I was in luck, only to find out that the company had gone bust. Nice. ANKI was a consumer robotics startup that had raised almost $183 million during its 9-year life, up until 2019. That alone is quite an achievement for any startup. The company started off with the ANKI Drive, a slot car-like car track made more fun by its interactivity via application, and open lane layout, which uses sophisticated technology to keep the cars in place. So the ANKI Drive was released in its earlier days, and then the ANKI Overdrive, an expandable and more interesting version of the first product, was released in 2015 before the release of Cosmo in 2016, a child-oriented toy robot, which was the precursor to Vector. The Vector robot was released in late 2018, and according to some sources, the prototype for the next robot was already complete before the company had gone under. I won't go into too much detail on ANKI just because the main goal of this video is to help potential late buyers with a purchase decision, but here's some interesting information that can shed light on the ANKI situation in case you have hopes of them returning to the market. The main fact in all of this is that ANKI ran out of funding, and as a last-ditch effort to get some additional cash, used Silicon Valley Bank as a lender. Silicon Valley Bank isn't a typical bank, and they specialize in these kind of startup deals, among other things they do. ANKI put up the IP they created as collateral for the loan they took, which was to be used by the bank in case ANKI defaulted or couldn't pay back the bank. What I gather from this is that the bank is going to want to make its money back, naturally, so I doubt they're going to let go of the IP without serious repayment. And considering ANKI had a hard time raising more funds, it seems a bit of a stretch that they'd be willing to pay for the IP back and then use the remaining money to start the venture again. The bank will more likely find a way to either sell the IP, sell the remaining Vector and other ANKI robots, and recover their losses before shutting the service down, which is bad news for anyone who have purchased their products, considering that these products rely on over-the-air updates that improve the products over time. If you know a little bit about Cosmo, you'd know that the open source community was part of the plan, and you'd be right to ask if the open source portion is available for Vector. That's where the loan by Silicon Valley Bank made things difficult. Since the collateral was the IP itself, it's unlikely that the source code will be given to the open source community to keep Vector alive and to make it more fun and interesting like other products. In fact, one product I'm about to review is the Metric time clock, and finding all those third-party open source developer apps has just made it extremely fun. But anyway, let's get back to Vector. I do want to say that I loved ANKI's mission, and I believe that given time and funding, they would have eventually put out some more interesting products. They were learning more and getting better with each release. But considering all of what I just mentioned, it's very unlikely that they're going to come back in business or that ANKI is going to have third-party developer support in any meaningful time frame or in a way that makes it worthwhile to purchase one, and keep just in case the open source community reverse engineers it and begins to put out interesting functionality for Vector. So should you buy one? If you've listened this far, I'll give you the short and sweet answer. In my opinion, no. For one, I don't think that ANKI in its former self is coming back, and considering that the ANKI Vector requires live servers to keep operating, it's inevitable that those taps will run dry soon and Vector will become a pointless device to own. You'd be essentially buying a perishable good. Yeah, sure, any guest who walks into your home will be in awe of Vector for the first 10 minutes, but as I have seen firsthand, they just get bored with it, and so will you. It really does lose its novelty factor pretty quickly. So although I love the way the robot looks at you, reacts to you, and makes a cool companion, it just loses its charm too soon to make it worth any money today, and knowing that there will be no more updates or ability to improve the product with time, it's just another reason to stay away. If you found this video and opinion helpful, please give it a like, and if you want to see more of these types of videos, please subscribe. Thank you.